Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Vandana, and I am your host tonight. We are happy to have our first Wisdom Wellness webinar of 2025. And we have our RIHHA Director and Secretary, and my beautiful friend, Linda Nugent. So she is a graphic designer, and she is also an astrologer, a sound therapist, and she has her own website. You can check more details about her on Aquarian Studio. And tonight we will be like exploring more about the stars and astrology. So welcome, Linda, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And it's so nice to see everybody tonight. First, I just like to say thank you for being here and showing up because time and attention is the most valuable thing we have. And I really, really appreciate your time and attention tonight. So, what I would like to do is I'd like to start with kind of an overview of what's out in the cosmos. And when I first started astrology, I started paying a lot more attention to like the stars out there and what was happening kind of out in the universe that I didn't know about. And there was a lot of things that were just, I don't know, totally awesome and wowing. And they just, that sense of wonder and, oh my gosh, look at that. Just really, like astrology has continued to keep, whether it's someone's personal chart or looking out at the stars, it has, really provided that childlike wonder and awe. And I think that's so important for all of our healing and connection because it's that kind of playfulness that just opens our heart and makes us just realize that there's just something wonderful and keeps our vibration high. And then the second half of what I'm going to talk about tonight is just about how we can look at the very jam-packed astrology that's happening in 2025 and how if you went and downloaded your chart, to try and make sense of it, where it would be affecting you and what it might mean. So with that, I have a PowerPoint and I'm going to start to share my screen.
Right, so this on.
There's a pressing issue that still needs attention: the state of our retirement savings.
Linda, I
Yes.
accidentally muted you.
Oh, okay. So am I back?
Yes.
Okay. And everybody sees the slide screen, is that correct? Okay, great. All right, so let's start with where we are and the galaxy. So this is a rendition from an artist actually of what the Milky Way galaxy might look like, and it was what we used to think it looked like. But at the center of our Milky Way galaxy is a supermassive black hole called Sagittarius A star. And in an astrology chart, you would probably find that around 26 or 27 degrees of Sagittarius. But this is actually a rendition from the beautiful telescopes that we've sent out in the universe. And so they've kind of done it from the inside out. And I am going to play this so that you get a little bit of a visual. But if this is the center of our galaxy in the Milky Way, this is where we are. And so we're a little bit out into the boonies. And so as this plays, I just wanted to say there's this idea that consciousness moves from the center of the galaxy and extends out. And we've been hearing a lot about this 5D reality, this upgrade that we are going to be getting. And it is just the idea that it's been reaching us now as it comes out to the galaxy. And so there we are. And then this is what the Milky Way looks to us when we look up into the sky. So going from the galaxy to our solar system, the center of the solar system is the sun. And just to give you an idea about how much sun energy the sun actually releases, every 1.5 millionths of a second, the sun releases more energy than we all consume in an entire year. The temperature of the sun is 10,000 degrees on the surface and 27 million at its core. Now, what you might not know is that the Earth also has a sun at her core. The inner core of the Earth is almost the same temperature as the sun. It's like 9,700 degrees and whatever. And this whole idea in astrology of things being symbolic, like as above, so below, I just find this is really beautiful because there's, something at the center of our galaxy, there's the sun at the center, and the Earth has also a light at her center. And if we think of the divine consciousness, is out there, then that spark of divinity is in us. And I just see the symbolism is just really beautiful. So the sun is really massive, 98.86% of our solar system. And let's see if I can get my laser pointer here on. This is the Earth, we're the third one here, but all these planets here only make up 0.2% of the mass in the universe. So let's just talk about speed. The sun moves around the Milky Way at 490,000 miles per hour. The Earth moves around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour. And the Earth itself is spinning on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour. And to give you a visual, this is what we were taught in school the solar system looks like. But in fact, it's moving, and it's moving through space quite quickly. And so even more than circular and mathematics, we're in a vortex. And it's actually the sun's massive amount of weight and gravity that keeps us, protect us, and kind of hugs us in and allows us to be moving through the universe, experiencing what we're experiencing. And once you understand that, you can really understand how the same vortex energy carries through on Earth and why we see this pattern so many different places here on Earth. Even right to our DNA, everything is kind of spun. And the sun also has, I like to think of it as the sun's aura. It's called a heliosphere, and it's charged particles, an electromagnetic field that actually surrounds it and protects it from I actually don't know exactly what it protects us from, but from that movement, from whatever it could get bombarded as it moves through. And I just wanted to give you a visual of that. So if this is our solar system, and that's the bubble of the heliosphere that we're in, that's its protective force as we move through. And so another way to look at this is we are actually inside the body of the sun, that we are one with the sun. We're not really separate. And again, that same symbolism of being kind of incorporated in one and yet separate as an individual is just, I think, a really beautiful connection. So we all know that lately we have been having 5M and some X-class solar flares. That's why the northern lights have been reaching down so far. And I just wanted to give you a visual of, what that might look like. So here's the sun. This would be energy or plasma coming from the sun. And this is, you can think of it as the Earth's aura, its own electromagnetic field. And the sun kind of blows it out, compresses it, and these are the northern lights. And then actually it comes back in the back end. And what I like about this visual is you can really see how when you would be in the presence of someone who has a really high vibration or someone who's like a saint, how that energy coming towards you can actually lift and fortify your own aura and lift you into a higher state of vibration. And I'm going to play that just one more time so you can think of this, and how alternatively, if someone's in a traumatic event, the kind of effect it might have on their aura and the way that it might blow it out and then also stick to someone and not be so easily discharged. And so there's a beautiful synchronicity and geometry and cosmic patterns that happen in the earth. And I wanted to, let's see, talk about a Venus star pattern. So one of the things I'm going to be talking about that will be happening shortly is that Venus is going to be going retrograde. And when planets go retrograde, they're very close to the Earth at that time, so they're much, much stronger. And during this time, Venus changes from an evening star into a morning star. Let me just play this. So these are the two planets revolving around. And this is a retrograde period. This is a retrograde period. This is a retrograde period. But Venus retrogrades in almost the identical same part of the sky every 8 years. So there's this pattern. So it gives us a chance to kind of spiral around, come back to the same issues, but hopefully on a higher level. And this is the 5-petaled star here when it's actually complete. This is Mars's pattern with Mars and the Earth. And then even between planets, this is Saturn and Jupiter's. And when I look at this, it almost looks like chakra petals, that this beautiful symmetry and geometry happening, you know, almost even happens right on our body as we have chakra patterns. And so where does this bring us with our own astrology? So this is an astrology wheel. I'll move this over a little bit. And this is a traditional chart. And the reason I say traditional, because the astrological year begins with springtime. Why? Because there's like nothing, everything is dormant, and then boom, there's a big burst of energy and life kind of just pops up everywhere. So this is Aries. And every sign, every zodiac sign, like Aries has a ruling planet. So Aries has Mars, Taurus has Venus. And I made this chart and just wrote it out. So in case you didn't know what the symbols are, you would know. And Gemini has Mercury. And so it is all around the chart. Some signs have 2 planets. And for instance, Scorpio has Pluto, and it also has Mars as a ruler. Pluto wasn't discovered until relatively recently in modern history. And so Pluto was given to Scorpio. But in ancient times, before we knew about Pluto, it was Mars that was the ruler. So in certain planets or signs, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Pisces have 2 rulers. In that case, usually when I look at a chart, I will look at both of the rulers to see what's happening to them to try and get more information about it. So these are the angles of your chart, this horizontal line that cuts the wheel in top and half, and this vertical line that cuts it from side to side. And these angles here of your chart are very, very sensitive parts of your chart. Right here is considered the ascendant, and that is the cusp or the doorway to your very first house, and that's your rising sign. And then up here is your midheaven. So this line would be called, or you can think of it as the line of consciousness. Why? Because this is daytime here, the sun rises here, it's at midday, noon here, and it sets here, and midnight down here. And this line here would be your line of power. And that's because this side is more your own identity and what's in your own hands, and this side is other people's and other people's effect on you. So you are at the very center of your chart. That's why you need to know where you are in space, and we need to know where it is that you were born. And so I like to tell people, we stand here and the sun moves around, and we know that's not exactly true. The sun isn't moving around us. So astrology is really not exactly the truth. It's your perspective of it, and your perspective while you're here on Earth. This is color coded. So Aries is red, fire. Taurus is green for earth. Gemini is yellow for air. And Cancer is water. And they repeat fire, earth, air, water, and so on around. Fire and air are considered masculine qualities. They're quick moving and very active. And actually, we're starting, a lot of planets are moving into fire and air. So things are going to move a lot more quickly. And we've seen that already. And water and earth go together. They're more compatible. They're slower moving and more receptive, excuse me, and considered feminine. So the horizontal line is daytime. So this is more ruled by the sun and your waking conscious. And this bottom half of your chart is basically nighttime. And so ruled more by the moon and more by your subconscious. So you can think of those two like that. And divided this way, I already mentioned, kind of self and others. So if you have a chart which has a lot of planets on one side, like this side, your life is going to be a lot more self-directed. You are going to make decisions and they're going to have an effect on your life. If you have more planets on this side, I'm going to use the word reactive, but it's not exactly correct. For instance, I have a lot of planets on that side of my chart, and like my husband's job changed, we moved. I didn't say, oh, I'd really like to move to whatever. I moved because of something that happened to someone else. And even so, like in my own life, when my parents, passed away, I was the youngest, but I was the one that took on that responsibility and took care of their estate and did everything. And it affected my life for like a broad period of time. When you have most of your planets here, it's going to be you who kind of make a decision and you who have a little bit more direction in your life. In the daytime area, if you have a lot of planets in the top half of your chart, you're going to be, people are going to know a lot more about you. A lot of your life is going to be out in the open. Sometimes, but not always, a lot of famous people who have their lives kind of out there have a lot of planets because everybody knows everything about them because they're in the public eye so much. Nighttime people are more private. We may not know very much about them. We know a few things that might be on the top of their chart, but we don't know the extent. They're a little bit more say mysterious, or their lives are a little bit more hidden from us. So the houses are each a part of life, and each one, the first house I am, the second house I have, has a certain key phrase associated with it. And this is very simplistic, but these are kind of what the areas, and you can see here's the houses: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I guess I should say here too, when you're looking at a chart, like from day to day or year to year, the planets actually move this way in the order of the houses. I know it's counterintuitive because of what I just said about the sun and the sun rising and setting, but it's because of the spin of the earth and whatnot. But planets will be moving this way around a chart. Let's see what I wanted to say about this. So axes kind of matter. In other words, the first house and the seventh house are directly across from each other, and they have a theme that's associated with them. This is your appearance and your identity and your body, and then this is your marriage partner, other people. So this is about what I want, and this is about what other people want. So this is about me, and this is about you. The second house and the eighth house is considered financial houses. This is the money and possessions and self-worth and salary that I make and I command, my possessions that I have. And then this is money I get from other people, my partner's money, maybe mortgages or grants or debts that I would get, or sometimes people who have a lot of planets in the eighth house handle other people's money, like investments and whatnot. The third house and the ninth house are thinking, they're learning houses. This is associated with communication and data and elementary school. Well, once we get that information, as we mature, what do we believe? What's our personal philosophy, our higher education? And, what do we do with that information? It's more than just data. It's actually part of how we see the world. The fourth house and the 10th house, private life, family, career, public family, and public notoriety. The 5th and 11th houses are creative houses, children, creative expression, creative identity, and also groups and what we do with that and our creativeness out in the world with friends and community groups, and sometimes professional groups that we might be involved with. And then the 6th house and the 12th house are about healing, really. This is about service to other people and health. And this is, I know what this says here, but it's the unknowable. It's our spirituality. It's our imagination, the place where we get inspiration, our connection with all things. One thing I really like about astrology is this particular model, because you can be born with a lot of planets in just a couple houses, but as the planets move around your life, it's almost like a diamond. Light hits different facets. It will illuminate different facets of your personality, different parts of your life. And when you use astrology like a map and you look forward to, oh, these are the areas that are going to get the next the most energy for the next year or two, it really helps you be balanced, because things are always moving. So you don't ever get stuck in just your career or just, your kids or whatever. It can help really kind of balance out and help you to lead a fuller life. So now we get to hot spots for 2025. So March is a big hotspot. There are so many things going on. That Aries Pisces axis of healing and of the alpha and the omega, kind of the end of a cycle and the beginning of new life and new things really coming forward, is really, really activated. Why do I say this? Because there's 2 retrogrades over that exact point. Venus and Mercury are going to retrograde over that point. And when retrogrades happen, these planets will stay right on those points and those positions, going first over it, then back, which will give us a chance to maybe rethink things, rethink the information that came out the first time, and then hopefully the third time we can enact what we really would like from the situation. But it spends 3 times of the amount of time that it usually spends in those signs during this time. There are 2 eclipses happening on that axis, and eclipses are turning points. Full moons and new moons have a lot of energy to them, but eclipses are kind of those points on steroids, like much, much bigger beginnings and endings and completions of things, a chance that really puts a focus on a particular area. Events or whatever come up, or people come into our lives and we think, oh, we hadn't thought about that for a while. And so during these times, we should make kind of an antenna to say information that comes into us during these times is going to be important information for our future growth for the next year or so. And then also Neptune enters Aries at the end of the month. So the mystic becomes the hero. So Neptune is very strong in Pisces. It's going to move into Aries. So, all the spirituality and all the practices that we have are going to require an action. And it's funny, Vandana, we were just talking before about, chanting and doing so many days of a practice. I can't stress to you enough that, like, over this next year, but particularly starting in March, our disciplined spiritual practices are going to be so, so important to keep us balanced. And I really see everybody here in this group, because we are part of that healing access, that we are the people who are going to anchor the light for what's to come. You can also take an astrology chart, and different signs are different, reflect to different parts of the bodies, and Aries is the brain. And so going from Pisces to the foundation, the feet to the head, I really see that all this, energy that's happening right at this point is almost like the psychic opening for everyone. And so we have a lot of tools, because we've been practicing these things, to help us when we have, very vivid dreams or spiritual visitations. But a lot of people who aren't used to that or get very uncomfortable in those situations are going to really start to open up their psychic abilities, and they're going to be very uncomfortable with it. And that's where we can help. And I really do think this is where, we're going to kind of enter and be more sought out over the next couple years. So the Aries point is 0 degrees of Aries. And as these planets are crossing over this point, it's the world axis point. It means things that happen here usually affect the whole globe. when I say that, people always think, oh, it's going to be something bad. No, it doesn't have to be something bad. Although one thing that does, stick up in my mind is like the Fukushima earthquake, and that disaster that happened was right on the Aries point. But that happened in Japan, but all of us had like a sense that that was, wow, that's a big thing. And Martin Luther King was assassinated when Chiron was on the Aries point. And so that happened here in the States, but the whole world, it changed everything. And so that's what I say about the global impacts. And so this is a very, tenuous point. The mystic becomes the warrior. Connection to everything comes into the world, and in its best form, divine love in action. And the more we can anchor that and the more we can connect with that and keep that strong, I think the more that will actually begin to show in the world. So what I've been saying to my clients is, wherever this is in your chart, if you download your chart, you look at this axis between these Pisces and Aries point, let's consider where we're playing the victim. And why do I say that? Because Pisces is, a self-sacrificing sign. It's someone who's very empathetic. It's someone who's very imaginative. Our boundaries are a little looser. And because of that, I think the more negative side of that is we can play the victim sometimes because we have a hard time saying no. We are in that very empathetic space. And because of the type of work we do, there can be a certain codependency or personal autonomy. So, really look and see, in this area of my life, do I feel like I'm the victim? Am I looking and thinking, oh, someone's the victim, so I'm helping them all the time? And really reevaluate and ask the questions about charity. I had a client one time, and what happened in her chart is there was a situation and she was doing something very nice for someone that she wouldn't ordinarily do. And that person was also doing something very nice back. Both of them were doing what they saw as a charitable act for the other person. The problem with that is when you do something nice for somebody, it's you usually have more power to do it. And so they both thought they were doing something nice and they weren't getting the gratitude back because neither one of them really wanted to be doing it. They were just doing it because they thought it was needed. And, so because Pisces is charity and this is coming into Aries and coming into the world, let's look at, what do we think of charity? Where are we charitable? Are we being charitable, or are people being charitable to us and not realizing it? And where is this differential in power actually coming from? And define your boundaries and your trade-offs, because the time of victimhood is over. We are going to have to take stands, and we are going to have to just enable our boundaries. This is who I am. And doesn't all our practices and bring us back to that question, who am I? And I think, in March and for the rest of this year and even into next year, because some of these are slow moving planets, they're at these points, who am I is going to be a really important question for us. So the end of suffering or the beginning of not caring about suffering, beginning a completely different reality and future. So keep your vibration very high. Your dreams can become realities, but you might bump into the limits of your spirituality. And so then what is the action? What is the 3D world thing that you need to do to embolden who you are and what value you actually bring into the world? So I just pulled these archetypes that I thought kind of matched this. The hero is Aries, the warrior, the hero, going from Pisces to Aries, the Shaolin monk, that peaceful warrior, the mystic warrior. Or it could be the fool from the tarot, which is just, okay, I'm going to go on an adventure, but having that beginner's mind, having that not taking any baggage with you, just starting something really fresh. So again, this is an astrology wheel. Now Aries and Pisces is at the top. And so this is the line that we were just talking about. For the rest of 2025, a lot of outer planets are going to be changing signs. And so the energy really shifts. And I just want to quickly go over Pluto is at the beginning of Aquarius, and that happened in November, right before the year turned. So when you look at your chart, you look at Aquarius, especially in the beginning, you know, a metamorphosis, a complete change, a new beginning, transformation. Pluto is slow moving and it's a very outer planet. So it's not very personal. These aren't going to be very personal things to happen to you. Usually the outer planets are more cultural and shifts out there, but they affect the way we perceive and things, the decisions that we might make in our personal lives, but they're not really events that happen. But Pluto is very slow moving. When it was in Capricorn, right when it entered, the financial crisis happened, and of course the banking and the government became very transformed, and now it's just left that transformation, and it started with Aquarius, which is our ideals, our humanity. It's a very humanitarian sign. What are we going to do for groups of people? What are we going to do to look out for each other? What is the common good? And also it's technology and science. Neptune is entering Aries. That's here where we just talked about. And in May, Saturn is going to join that. And that's really when it becomes real, when it comes down to the reality that we have. Jupiter is moving from Taurus into Cancer. From Gemini into Cancer. And that's expansion and growth and opportunity. So wherever Cancer is in your chart, you know, expect it to just expand, and that should be easy flow. It's gifts. Caution with Jupiter is, you know, don't overpromise because you get so excited, or don't get over idealistic. Make sure that you keep things a little bit practical. But Jupiter in Cancer should be very good because it's very strong in Cancer. So this should be a big growth area in your chart. And Uranus moves into Gemini June 9th. And so what I want to point out is these are Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus outer planets. So again, not personal planets, but they are in a very harmonious, for the first time in a long, long time, very harmonious aspects here, opportunity and growth. So this abrupt change and awakening, and it could be a strike of genius too that's happening in Gemini, and the way we communicate and we learn, this becoming our own identity and our own, bringing our own spiritual practices and making them really, really real and anchoring them in the earth. And then this metamorphosis of, you know, our ideals are kind of what is being tagged for the next really 2 years, but really starting very, very strongly this year in March. And then finally, the eclipse is in September. It's the second pair of eclipses, again, on this same axis again. So it will be repeated. This is all very unusual, I want to say. We don't usually have such a strong axis. So I can't see everybody on my screen, but I guess I'll just go through this. Where to find my chart if you don't know. I usually like to use astro.com, and when you put that in, it will bring you to this page and go to charts and calculations. And then when you go there, it'll bring you to extended charts and calculations, and click on that. And this will be the box that you get. So just fill out your name, go to round, natal chart wheel. I would use classical style because it's just kind of a basic. And this is if you are more advanced and you want to use transits. But just do your natal chart to start with. It'll give you a lot. And just hit show the chart. And so this is Vandana's chart. And I just want to bring your attention to this area here. And I blew it up here. So the CFM is cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. So cardinal signs are the signs where the seasons change. It's where the equinoxes are and the solstices are. And if you have a lot of planets in cardinal like that, they're action people. You know, the seasons change, things take a new turn. Things are going to change now, they're going to be different. Action happens. So it's a very active area. Fixed are the endurers. They're the mid-season, and if you think of, Cancer being the beginning of the summer, then Leo is the fixed sign. The flower turns into a strawberry, but in the middle, it really grows and ripens, and you get to see kind of the fruits of your labor. And so fixed people don't like beginnings and endings, but they can really persevere and they can make things grow. But they're a little bit more stubborn. Mutable people are at the ends of each season, and they are very good at picking up small signs about change in the air, the signs of the light, the way the weather is just changing very slightly. And so they're very flexible and adaptable. And mutable people, if you have a lot of planets and mutable, in our culture, you don't really get the amount of recognition that you deserve, because in our culture, the flexible people who are saying, oh no, things are going to change. Change is always good. Let's go to it. You better start preparing. Nobody likes to hear that. We like the people that take action. We like the people that like the status quo. But the mutable people, even though in times of great change, they're really, really important, and maybe even a little bit more artistic. They're not given a lot of credit, even though they have a very important function. Fire, air, earth, and water. Most of us deal with elements. Fire being very enthusiastic, very energetic, very purifying. Air is mental, very thinking, very clever. Earth are the people that like tangible things. They're the people you can rely on. They like to build things. They like it to be real. They're not too lofty. And water is empathetic, intuition, spirituality. And so right from here, Vandana, you can see you have a lot of cardinal planets. So you like to take action. You don't mind changing things. You don't mind saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and go right ahead and do it. And you also are very mutable. And of course, I know Vandana, but I will say, even though she has many ideas herself, if anybody goes to her and says, you know what, I was thinking and I'm seeing this all different, like, she will listen. She will listen to that. She's not just going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. So because she has a lot of mutable signs. And earth and water, you can see I put this yellow block behind here, or air and earth, sorry. Air, she's very clever, very smart, but she can really build something with it. She can make something in this world of it. She won't get too lofty with it. She's actually very grounded. And so just by using kind of these elements, it actually tells you quite a bit about this chart before you even get into a personality. If you look, all her planets are basically on this side here. And so she's very self-directed. A lot of planets are under the horizon. But Jupiter in the very beginning of Leo is here. And so that's what people kind of see about her, that she's very jovial, that she's playful, that she's happy, that she's creative and energetic and an optimistic person. And, Jupiter is, someone who's always willing to, help out and give gifts. And so that's what kind of people see. But there's a lot we don't see that's going on with her that you'd have to know her a little bit better to get to know. Okay, so let's see. So Saturn and Neptune are here at the beginning of her 8th house, and 8th house is a financial house, as I mentioned before, and it's other people's money, her spouse's money. And because I know Vandana, I know her daughter is heading towards college, so it's not surprising at all that she'd be thinking about, scholarships and, all that to do with other people's money, and, financial aid or whatever, or colleges, and kind of rethinking that. What I did want to say, though, is that the expo that we're having is happening right in between the 2 eclipses, and when all this is happening right on her 8th house. And so this is actually where Uranus is going to come in on her midheaven and switch. And this won't happen until later in the year. And this is where Jupiter, so this is her area of growth, which is organizations, outside organizations, groups of friends, social organizations. And Pluto is right here in her area of health. Pluto is right here in, sorry, I think someone was coming in. Pluto is right here at the beginning of her area of health and healing. And so I have to when I look at all this and put it together, I have to think whatever's going to happen at the expo, because that's kind of a big thing, seems like, she might be thinking about, I'm hoping it's going to be wildly successful, but maybe the money that she gets from other people here is going to actually bring some kind of, she's going to be looking more at what are we going to do as an organization and organizations with friends as a group. And maybe her career is going to take a different little segue. Maybe she's going to learn something because it's Gemini, maybe do something that she hasn't done before. And 6 is going to transform, health and healing, and this is her work, and bring other people to work with in this. And so I see this as a very positive thing, but because an event, and that's why I'm mentioning this, because an event is happening when all this energy, it's got to be significant to these other things that will happen next year. So this is Jen's chart, and I'm going to see, Jen, I can't see you, but I know you're here. Oh, there you are. Okay. So when I would look at a chart, normally what I would do is I would first just look where the sun is. And the sun, as I said, is this huge, massive thing in the universe. And it's in her 5th house. And 5th house is creative identity, creative expression, and children. And it's in Aquarius. So she has a unique take on creativity. She would also, if she was working with kids, any kid that was very unique or had kind of a wild hair, she would really know how to work with that and would really appreciate that. And Aquarians, they have their own sense of time and speed, and they also are too a little bit of a different drummer. So where our sun is, and this is what you can think about in your chart, where our sun is where we can shine our light the best and where we can make the most difference and be the most successful. But how can we get there? We get there by where our moon is. So that would be the next thing that I look at. And so how is she going to take all this creativity and this very unique outlook on kids and creativity and also playfulness, because the 5th house is like being in the recreation room. It's playful. It's very playful. It's what we do. It's entertaining too. It can be entertainment. But how is she going to really express herself the best? How is she going to get there? And it's with other people. And the moon's here, so that is indicative of children as well. But it's in Pisces, and this is someone who's very, very sensitive and someone who may be very, very artistic, because the moon is very sensitive to inspiration and the imagination. That's Pisces, the spirituality, that's Pisces, the connection to the unseen world. And so in your chart, in the 7th house, it's going to be the kind of people you're attracted to. So she would be attracted to very artsy people, people who have a spiritual slant, people who are very sensitive, or alternatively, other people would see her this way. But usually it's the people that we attract. These are kind of their traits. So that's how she would get there. And then the last thing would be, I'd look at the rising sign, which is the 3rd most important thing. And her rising sign is Virgo. And the ruler of Virgo is Mercury, which is here in her 4th house. So home again. This is a healing sign, a healing sign, Virgo, someone who works very hard, someone who is very interested in details and getting things done and being very accurate and correct. And here, this is where her ruler is in the 4th house, and it's in Capricorn. So I would interpret that her home, this is the 4th house of home and family, that she's kind of the CEO of her family, both the family she came from and the family she has, and that she takes on the communication. Maybe she's the main matriarch of the family or whatever, make sure everyone stays connected. But she's the person that really works hard, achieves things for the family, and get things done. And then one cool thing you can do with your chart is your lowest planet, which for her is right here. So it would be any planet in this, as close to the 4th house cusp as you can, is usually the way that we see ourselves and the way we feel inside. But the highest planet, which is here, hers right here, is Saturn. would be what other people see us as. And so it's always interesting to compare those two. Here, she's Venus in Sagittarius, which is a very optimistic, happy sign. And so she would see herself, especially in her home, as very happy and giving and the beautiful woman that just makes everyone feel wonderful and feels like they're inclusive and they're included, and someone that really would like a home that has a certain aesthetic to it, a certain beauty to it. But what other people really see her as, and you'll have to tell me if this is true, Jem, is see her in Taurus is someone who gets things done, someone who's very reliable, someone who's a little serious, someone who says, are you sure you want to do that? Who's kind of the taskmaster, someone who makes people held accountability wise in her family, someone who might be even a little bit strict, but someone who builds things and makes structures for other people to actually, especially her family, since this is this, but the people who she thinks are her family or feels like her family, that she helps build them something safe and secure. Okay, so Jen, if you want to unmute yourself and just tell me how I did.
Oh, wow. That was good. It was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a little bit more for you. So the seventh house is that this is between Aries and Pisces. So again, you know, your peaceful warrior, your spiritual practices being brought home with other people. And what do you do for a living since you have so much, you know, fifth house child? This looks like child.
Nothing to do with children. I work in a hospital as a medical laboratory technician.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was home with my kids for 12 and a half years, and we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of you know, day trips, and we did a lot of arts and crafts and stuff like that. But I've never worked with children though.
Oh, that's funny.
And yeah, I'm not sure I would want to work with children because I was home with my kids for those years. And you know, you
A
know,
lot.
yeah, yeah. I was trying to look for the word. But
Yeah.
I do like to have fun and, you know, be silly and stuff like that for sure.
And the eternal child, you know, that's the one here. So with other people, and then, you know, it's funny in the medical community, the people we work with is almost like a marriage because you uh, are on call and and so like people don't like to call in sick because someone else will have to take an extra call. So it is. But anyway, you know,
Mm.
this would be where I would say, you know, with other people, in particularly, you know, people that are your face-to-face relationships that are very close to you, you know, how is that dependency and is there anything that needs to be adjusted or maybe reevaluated in there? And then here is Jupiter. So your career looks like, it, you know, once it moves, Jupiter moves into your 10th house. It's already, you know, crossing over your 10th house. So you should feel it already. It should get a lot stronger. So you should have a lot more opportunity or something good should happen with your career or status. Um, and Uranus. So this, you know, maybe regarding travel. I don't know. This is like the ninth house issues for changes and liberation. And then fifth house is where Pluto is. So transformation of, you know, kind of how you express yourself and maybe have a little bit more fun and playfulness and time for yourself just to do something you would just like to do. But it seems like this travel and maybe learning something, or have you thought about going back to school or doing any other training or anything recently, or just even taking a course just for fun, not having to do with work at all?
Yeah, well, I actually just started taking an energy medicine course. I signed up for energy medicine 1 and 2, and it was something I've been wanting to do for a while. So it just started. It's one Saturday a month, so I'm just very excited about it because I've always been interested in stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and I've also been thinking about, you know, maybe doing something else for work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it looks like this
Yeah,
year.
something more fun and less stressful, you know.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, thank you.
yeah.
Thanks for showing up tonight. I appreciate it and letting me use your chart.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was great.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to just take a screenshot of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, don't mind. Let's see. Oops. Let me see. Okay, hopefully that worked. Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is like a little worksheet. And if anybody wants to take us, if you're not going to download the PDF, you might want to take a screenshot of this. So what I did is Neptune and Saturn, I put the keywords in here. For the Mercury retrograde, I put the keywords in. It's on the Aries axis, so I put it here. So all you have to do is find out where it is, what house it is, and then add the keywords into there to kind of get where it might be hitting you and what area of life and how it might affect you. And then this is a little bit more of the houses. We had that first picture of the houses, and I won't go over them all, but if you wanted to take a screenshot, or this will be in the PDF too, of the house meanings. And then the planet energy keywords, just to reiterate those. So Jupiter in Cancer, strong expansion and growth, feeling safe, travel back to ancestral homeland sometimes, protection of self and children, expansion in your home. So people may redecorate, they may add on things, they may move, they may get a second house. But more than that, it's expansion of emotional connection with others and nurturing actions. Uranus in Gemini is restlessness. So if you're starting to feel restless in a certain area of your life, pay attention to it, because it means change is going to come there. There's going to be something that happens anyway. So if you're feeling restless, start to say, oh, whatever first step you might not get you to the place, but maybe you'll meet people, and then all of a sudden that will be the change that happens. Uranus can be disruptive or cause breaks in things. Also merchandise, and because it's Gemini, cars, things like that, can tend to have little issues, but mainly it's breakthroughs and shakeups in communications, education, and learning. And so again, Gemini and Uranus is going to be there for 7 years. So you might want to begin to study something just for fun, or learn something, or teach. If you have a skill and you've never thought about teaching, maybe start a little group and teach. It's really a very mental, teaching, expressive, social sign. And Pluto and Aquarius are things beyond our control, and shaping new ideals and a new direction. So Pluto usually doesn't have a lot to do personally, as I said before, but just so you have it. And then this is just a cool little thing I added, because if you go to astro.com, and this is Jen's name, and instead of the round that you said, if you did special, and you scroll down to, it's called time dots image, and then just hit show the chart, it will take you your information and draw this expression of your chart. And it does it each, like first it's the little pink dots, then it's the yellow dots and whatever, and everybody's horoscope looks different. I will say, besides the time dots image, there's also one that makes your astrology chart into a tone, into a sound, and so you could do that too, and that's kind of fun. But here is Pluto, Uranus. It tells you what it is, but it also gives what they think, this algorithm thinks, is your percentage. And if you look at Jen's, it's Pluto and Saturn, 21% and 26%. Everything else is much, much smaller. And so Pluto and Saturn make you very intense and hardworking. But what I wanted to say is, when you look at this picture, like her Venus was very important to her, but it's the little pink dots scattered everywhere, where the thing somebody sees, which is Saturn, are the big blue dots. And so if you look at that, you can kind of see, yeah, in certain areas of my life, there's these big parts of myself, but everywhere, what's everywhere? The pieces of us that really permeate and are seen as one picture. And I just always think that's kind of a fun thing to include. Yeah, so just my last words, I'm summing up now. look for a pattern, a theme emerging. One detail doesn't mean anything. And if we know where the energy is pressing down, if we use it in its positive action rather than having something happen and react in a negative way, I really think as long as we find a channel for the energy to get at, it will get out that way. And in ways of, if we know it's coming and using it in a positive way, using the energies in a positive way, we can kind of counteract and stop the negative manifestations from coming into our lives. And I said this earlier, that we as healers kind of anchor the light more than ever, and to please keep up a spiritual, disciplined practice. Who am I and what value do I bring to the world are probably the two most important things, especially over the next 6 months, to really, think, who am I? What value do I have? And really begin to act on it. The last thing I'll say is a lot of times you read in astrology books, everything is a bad omen. It's not. If things are a little harder, it just means you have to work harder, or maybe it will become the one thing you're known for. Again, be careful about it's not just one thing, isn't it? And use it positively and you can counteract the negative manifestations. And I'd like to leave with this. This is from Celine Dion. And she said, I didn't invent myself. I didn't create myself. I am. The performance is way bigger than the song. It was never, ever just about the song. And that's the way I see an astrology chart. It's like your sheet music, but you get to decide how to perform it. You can do it in acoustic with just a guitar. You can have a rock band, a gospel choir, or a symphony. You can do it with many people or one people, but your performance is the way bigger than the astrology chart and the perspectives and the things that you bring. But we don't really create all of ourselves. We just are, and that's the astrology chart. We're born with certain talents, but we do get to perform them, and that's on us. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just open up for questions.
No, that was phenomenal. Anybody has any
Thank you,
questions?
Heather. Questions, comments? All right. So was it clear?
It's a lot of information.
Yeah, I know. That's why I did the PDF. I know astrology is so technical, but there are these little things like, your rising sign, your sun, and your moon are, important. So if you look at those three things and what's happening to those three things in your chart and against everything else, it'll give you most of the information because we kind of know what's going on in our lives.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. I actually pulled a book out.
What book is that? Oh,
Astrology, Your Personal Guide.
yeah, I was going to say this book. I don't know if everybody can you see it?
Yes.
It's like a workbook. Oh, I should put it in the PDF. It's like a workbook, but it's kind of what I went over, and it's a really good. It's called Astrology for the Absolute Beginner by Mark Mann with 2 N's. And it's a really fun thing if you just wanted to get it and get your chart out and just you fill it out. It gives you the keywords just like I did. And, then it gives you an exercise to kind of think about, and it goes through your whole chart. It's a good way to get started learning astrology, but it's also kind of a fun thing to get to know your own chart and kind of what's happening now.
How about you put the links to buy the book from? And
Yeah.
yeah.
Will I give that to you, Vandana, after? Yeah.
Like in the chat as well, and I will copy paste that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think I have chat open. So how many of you know about astrology? How many know your chart and know knew some of this beforehand? Yeah, George,
Little.
Heather, a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. How do you find your rising and moon and all that? Like, because I don't know it.
Oh, if you go to astro.com and follow those,
So do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then on the very bottom, if you don't know what the little symbols mean, it tells you, it writes out sun and shows you the symbol. And so then you can find out, oh, this is in, my fifth house. You can write it in. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say for me, like you should have been like a rocket scientist or, like you could have been that or this, right? It's like a lot of information.
Yeah.
So to me, it's incredible. It's an incredible amount of knowledge. And it's almost like for me, I would need you as an interpreter, to be that language processor kind of,
Well, I mean, that's why people get their astrology charts read or start taking astrology classes, because there is a lot to it. And that's one thing I like because I've been doing it for so long. It's like the puzzle that keeps giving. Just when I think, okay, I kind of got that, all of a sudden someone will say, oh, I tried this technique, and I'll read it in the journal and I'll be like, that can't ever show you anything. And then all of a sudden I'll do it and be like, oh my God, look at that. And so it's that, what I talked about in the beginning, that kind of sense of wonder that you're just always like, wow, look at that randomness, and it made a pattern anyway. It's just uh, I don't know, the puzzle that keeps giving. You'll never know it all. And I mean, yes, Janice, I think that's why people do go to astrologers. It's very helpful if you do go to astrologer, though, if you have a set of questions, specific question, any spiritual practice, really, if you have a set of what you would like to know and things, even if they're very fine-tuned things that, you're grappling with, that you're having, because if you ask questions, you can take your chart and say, well, these would be where the answers are and what the remedy is.
So you do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's many ways to cast, like that's your natal chart, but there's your birthday chart. Like, depending on, if you're moving, you can do a chart to what it would look like when you move there. Like there's many, many ways, so if you have a specific question, or a specific area of life that's giving you trouble, there, you can tell people. The more information astrologers have, the more they can be more honed in and specific. But mainly it's the conversation that happens between the person. Because, honestly, I'm not psychic. I don't know what's happening. I can just tell you where the energy is pressing down. You have to tell me what's going on in your life and really think about it. So the one beautiful thing about it is it causes people to be a little bit more analyze their lives a little bit more critically in a particular area, because they have to really think about, like the one example I gave you about the charity, these two people were doing nice things, but there was the power dynamic was off, and so what was the remedy? Being grateful and, just saying, you don't have to do this anymore. I'm good. It's easy, but it's trying to, see why is this not working, or what is the lockup,
Cool.
So good. So thank you. I know it's a lot. Everybody's always like, whew. Well, anyway, feedback is always good for me. So, if anybody either now or later, wants to say this was really good, but this was too much, I'm always happy to hear how I can fine tune these presentations that I have for people. But, the work that we do is so profound, like all the healing arts and, healthcare, whatever. It's I don't think a lot of other people really understand the depth of things that like we talk about, and the depths of things that we think about, and the depths, like the soulful things and the thresholds that, people are at when they meet us, and they're having such a profound moment of their life, and we get to really witness that. It's a very, I don't know, a privilege, I think, to do that. And, I love the Holistic Healing Association because I just really think we're very heart-centered, deep. I come home, I say to my husband, I just was at Hogwarts like last night. It's like, you could go to this like magical place that people talk about. Who knows what they're going to talk about, but it's at a very, very deep, but also, cognitive level that's hard. And it's, where do you find that, where people are thinking deeply, feeling deeply, and, being heart open? There's not a lot of places that are like that. And one nice thing about astrology is when I talk to people, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying this is what the chart says. I don't know, there was,
Mm.
and I will tell you a story. There was a woman who at the very beginning of COVID, she was a shopkeeper in Providence, and she came to me and she said, "Would you do my chart again? Because, COVID happened and I'm closing my shop and I'm just like really lost." And so I did her chart. And her chart had many, many things in the fourth house, really good things in the fourth house. And I said to her, this is saying like, you're going to do things with your home. I said, you're thinking about real estate. She had moved. So I said, you're definitely moved. She actually went to Florida. And I said, well, this says, and she said to me, yes, I just took a real estate course down here. And she said, but, it's COVID now, like what's going to happen? And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but the chart says you are going to make a lot of money and do really, really good at this. And it was funny. She called me like the next year and she said, I couldn't believe it either. But as we all know, property went gangbusters. I mean, I thought everybody would just kind of close up, and she's like, who knew? And I was like, I didn't know. And I kept thinking, and actually there was a man, a client I had who contacted me and, when I went over his chart, he's actually has some FEMA issue from a disaster a while ago that he's expecting some money from, and he wanted to know if he's going to get it. It looked great, And so I said to him, yes, definitely. As soon as Jupiter moves into Cancer, that money's coming in. And it's funny, I almost called him last week and said, I don't know with everything happening in this FEMA. But your chart says yes, like it really says yes. So I'll wait to hear. So, I mean, I don't know anything. The chart says this, and we'll just hope for the wisdom of the world. So get your spiritual warrior on, guys.
I really like that you showed the charts and you showed the example, Jen's example. So there's a snapshot on your natal chart, but it's all in motion with the
Yes.
planet. And so I liked that we could see and hear that description. Yes, it was a lot of information, but it was really good visually and to hear you name things and describe them. So I really appreciated that. Thank you. It wasn't abstract. It was concrete, even though it was in motion.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, because astrology gets kind of technical, and I just always think, oh, and of course I love it, so I could talk about it and do it forever. But I don't want everybody to glaze over and think, oh my God.
And isn't there an awful lot going on right now? I mean, that's part of what you were sharing. The energies are very unusual.
And I mean, even the energy from the sun. I mean, there's just so much there. And, that movement of the sun, like there's an idea that as we move through the whole galaxy moving through that the universe is actually activating our DNA. Different parts of our DNA are coming on board just because we're in different portions of the universe as we move through. And when you factor all that into it, it's not just, the energies and the beautiful geometries that are creating pressure, on us. It's also, this evolutionary pattern of, mankind and the planet and everything. And it's just so many layers, so many layers.
I just want to say, beam me up, Scotty, because I'm feeling like it's way too much. So I just want to know we're all going to be here in a year or two still.
Yes, I think so. I think so. I think so. Because everything's, in our hands. And I do think, I do think we can't be complacent. Like this action, this movement from feeling, which is Pisces, into Aries is an action. So I do think, and, what is that action?
Yeah.
And, for instance, as people that are in healing professions, we need to voice what we need. A lot of times we don't do that, but we really do need to voice, and we need to know what we need. First we know to know it, and then we need to really voice it. So, I think it's our moment. I do think it's our moment, and we can see that, like with everything that happened, in Gaza recently. I was just the doctors in the hospitals keep going and going and going, even though all this bombing was happening and everything. And I was thinking, of course, like it's the healers who stay and take care of people no matter what. Like this is, these are the people who are there. And I think, we don't always know what we need. We don't always stand up and say, but I think, for us, we're going to have to take a much more active role. And I do think it's because a lot of people are going to get a lot more psychic and a lot more. And so our active role is going to be, oh, you know what, try this, like do these meditations, do this, like practice, do yoga, do like whatever it is. And it'll help keep you centered so that you can get that flow of energy and really make sense of it in a 3D world. But because it's in a harmonious aspect, I am more positive. I don't know what's going to happen kind of globally out there, but for each of us, I think it's kind of our moment to step into the light and shine and really anchor things for people and bring them along. I mean, we haven't gotten a lot of recognition. And I think sometimes, especially the holistic practices, we have a little bit of an inferiority complex, because we don't get that respect, but I do think, we really do serve an important part. And we think when we go into our jobs that that's our healing time, but really anytime we're around a dinner table, we have this healing energy about us. It's value, it's intrinsic, and that's what I mean. Like, who am I? What do I bring to the table? It's so funny. I moved to Fairhaven, and I was only there a short time. And there was a woman who we all liked very much in her 80s, and they had her 85th birthday party or something. And I went to it, and she was so lovely, with her little pearls and her little jacket. And she went around the whole room, and she said something really nice about everybody that was there. Oh, you are so smart. You bring this, and you bring people together, and you. And then she came to me, and I was thinking, what's she going to say about me? She hardly knows me. She's known me for like a month, and she said, like she thought for a second. She said, the spiritual side of things, that we all forget about a lot in our daily lives. You bring that to people. And I was so floored because in a very short time, she knew that. And I was thinking, oh, like it's that apparent, but apparently that's part of what I bring wherever I am. And I really don't realize it unless I'm like talking like this with you guys, or I'm with a client, or with, whatever. But I think we have to really realize what our full value is and really be proud of it, and really lose this, like the time for that inferiority complex needs to go, because people are going to need us. And I think
Our voices matter. Is really, our voices really matter.
yes, and I think
Yeah.
our compassion and our playfulness and that open-heartedness is really going to matter, because a lot of times all this craziness goes out in the world, people close their heart, and that's when bad things happen, that we're going to have to really be like, no, we need each other, and really make that like the really strength. And whether we stay home and we just chant, we say prayers, or we go out and we do it, or we have a prayer group, or we do it with clients, or we have a video group, or whatever it is, I think, it's going to be really, really important for us to make that connection and really, really bring that home. I can't say that enough. And even to myself, in the same discipline practice, because I do my own spiritual practices, really good for a while. And then I go on vacation, or I get busy, and then all of a sudden I stop. And then it's almost like I backtrack. And I don't think we're going to have that luxury. I think we're going to have to really, be present. And I think we're going to have to be, and I'm saying this more to myself because I'm more of an, shyer person. I don't do a lot of things out in the public eye. But I think doing our spiritual practices and talking about them in the public eye is going to be very, very important, which I think is why the expo is going to be a big jump for us for some reason, Vandana, because it's happening at this time that, people are going to say, oh, you're out there. And we're going to have to say yes, and when I teach my Reiki classes, I tell them, I never tell people this, but like, this is what I do, like at night before I go to bed. I say this little thing, and I think, oh, people know how crazy I am, but I'm gonna have to say that now and like be that and do that like more and just own it, which I hadn't for a long time. And I think that's all of us. And I think that's, that inferiority complex needs to go.
I think it's just really difficult to stay grounded in this time, to bring ourselves back to normalcy when normalcy is not happening. So for me, it's very difficult. So what's a trick? Give me your little
Havening,
tricks. Huh?
havening, havening.
Oh, I know, Reiki, but I mean,
We'll get out in
is
nature.
there
Right? Nature is
Nature, yeah.
and I will say, I just was out of the country and like we're going through this very surreal where reality is two different things or five different things or six different things. The rest of the world isn't going through it so much, and they're looking at it going, what's happening? And I'm like, I don't know, but it feels really different. Like once I left and I went somewhere else, it felt really different. So I think it's just here, and I think it's um, there's like a mind web. Everybody's thoughts, kind of are all around and they go through our minds. And I think those auric practices, where you just clear your aura and, clear your chakras. And it is really, really an important practice to keep that auric hygiene right now, because I think the mind web, especially here in the States, is just so thick. And I mean, a lot of the thoughts that run through our head aren't really even our own. They're worries of other people and all, and it's hard to like keep them out. And I was taught that our auras, when they're functioning really well, are like two, like spinning one way and the other way, and it's almost like a fan. So like if you walked through a room, it would brush all the dirt away and things wouldn't stick to you because it would keep this high thing. And so I really envision that, before I go to sleep. There's one of the things I do is I do a really aura sweep, and I really try and clear my chakras, and then I program it, like spin like this. I want my own boundary. I want my own boundary. These are my, and with that, what's the shamanic thing, the Wiener if you open it, I just always think that's my boundary. And I think of it as just pulling like a boundary around my edge. This is me, that's everyone else. And I don't want any infringement, particularly when I sleep, because I think that's when we're all feeling it so much. I have, when I do Reiki, I've got guides that I work with, and I've been putting them out at night. When I go to sleep, I place one in the room, and I just ask them, please, like, just keep, my thoughts clear and keep all that away so that I have a peaceful sleep tonight. And, my subconscious, if it travels or it doesn't, that it's just not infringed by all that like freneticness. And since I've been doing that, I've been sleeping much, much, much better.
So I didn't hear what you said. You have what that you work with?
Guides.
And you put what?
Like guides, like guardian angels or
Oh,
like
guides. Okay.
guides I work with, yeah. And I just anchor them. I ask them, please, come and, sit here and just keep me safe during the night when my, subconscious does what it does. That I just need some peace. I really need this peace. And that's been working really, really well. And oddly, my little grandson's been having like nightmares. And so I said to him, you know what I do? I take my little like friend and I say, would you please help me like this? He has like a stuffed animal, and I said, just right on your bed, you just say, you're going to anchor it, I'll, it will help you or whatever. I haven't heard so far because he's away this week if that's true, but he's buying himself a dream catcher, but I think like all these little practices that we do, I think, that auric hygiene is going to be an important thing. And, chanting is a really good way. Singing, like just keep your vibration high. What makes your vibration high? Saying, I love that. I love you. I like say I love whatever like 10 times a day and say thank you, that was so nice that you didn't have to do that, or I really appreciate that. Say that like as many times as you can a day. It keeps your aura very, very fortified. Keep your vibration high.
So Linda, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So my dad was an astrologer, like Vedic astrologer, and I have like learned few things from him, like when he used to read the charts. So like it happens like what you described about my personality and the chart you gave, that is similar to like Vedic astrology, but we put it into like those rectangle, right? And the triangles. So my question is like when my dad used to say like one planet is weaker or it should not be in that house so that it affects the personality or all the like the 12 criteria is what you mentioned, right? So is there any like remedy do you suggest? Suppose somebody like First of all, first question, is there something like negative or weaker planet in this chart in the circle one?
Yes. So how do you know when aspects happen or things happen if it's going to be positive or negative? Or that would be the terminology we would use. And it would be you would look at the strength of like a few things that are indicative. That's a lot more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, uh, but sometimes, like, if a planet's weak, for instance, it means that it has to work harder. It doesn't mean that it may be a negative outcome. It just means it's
Okay.
going to have to work a lot harder. So, if your Mercury is weak in a certain situation, you might have to say it many times or tell a lot of people or get an alliance together because you're going to have to more of a front. So that would be, say, the remedy. There are different types of weakness. One of them just means it's going to be a delay, or you're going to have to broaden your horoscopes. You're going to have to go out of your sphere of influence to actually affect it. So if there's something you want to do, all the people you normally would ask, you might have to find someone on the other side of the country that does that and look for someone further away. So I mean, there are little things. I know in India they're much better about like wearing jewelry to
Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
affect that, and stones and chakras and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
I haven't done too much about that, but what I do think is if you can, like I said, find a channel for the energy to flow out of and create that, or flow in, I think it's more helpful. One, because you're aware that it's going to be happening, and you're looking for it, your antenna is already up. And two, I think, because what happens if we don't take care of a situation in our life, the same situation is going to keep repeating when that planet comes around, and it's going to keep getting worse and worse until we're forced to take care of it. But once you're aware of it and you're looking at it, the first little negative thing, or someone might come on and be aggressive to you, but you think, oh, I know this is going to be an aggressive moment that's happening. I'm not going to go like this. I'm going to take that energy and just listen, and I'm going to go back around it. Like, you can find a segue to um, alleviate it so that the negative part doesn't show as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I know in Vedic astrology, there are very specific remedies, and that I
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah.
ask your father.
He's not there, so he passed
Oh,
away many years ago. So yeah, but I know, like for example, if he used to say like if the Jupiter is weak, he used to remedy that 21 Thursdays fasting, feeding the cow, and wearing the yellow, and wearing the like what's the yellow stone?
a
Something
citrine.
like, yeah,
Citrine.
citrine or something. Much more powerful that is dedicated for the Jupiter. So these kind of remedies he used to tell people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's where staffs come in. The people used to have staffs with big stones in them. They were stones that would
yeah,
help
yeah,
them
yeah, yeah.
certain big, or crowns with stones to help open their crown chakra, like, same kinds of things. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm a firm believer if, like, if you tell somebody, or you do say, I want this, or whatever it is, and then you do a ritual to it, it's like programming your subconscious, and it makes it, because we tell our subconscious all the time, go do this things, or I don't want this, or my back's killing me, when it's not. But once we really get serious and we have to prepare, and we do like a small ritual about it, and we do like many days in a row, we imprint on our subconscious, this is something serious, this is something we want, and this is something we want to manifest, whether it's feeding the cow or doing whatever. Like, I think if you made a ritual and really, like, it was important to you and did it over and over again, it would do the same kind of thing. And
Mhm.
maybe it's not exactly doing it that matters. Maybe it's like exactly what you do that matters. It's
Yeah.
doing like something over and again. And it's really important in bringing that. No, I want to be successful. I'm successful. I'm a Jupiter. I'm lucky. I'm lucky. Because a lot of luck is positive expectancy, right?
Yeah, yeah, the believing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would like to mention here. So two astrologers told me that I won't be a doctor, and they something told me about the marriage. And both of the things I have manifested it. I'm a doctor, homeopathy doctor. And my marriage, touch wood, with God grace, it's perfect. And like, what they have like read that time, nothing happened like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's in
Yeah,
believing.
your chart, Vandana, I didn't mention this when I did it, but and houses change depending on how you calculate it slightly. But what I did notice, like on the chart that I did, your houses, your axes are at 0 degrees, and that would seem to say that you're in a new incarnation this lifetime. That a lot of your um, uh, past karma has been wiped or whatever, and that this is kind of a fresh start for you to start a whole new cycle of where you are. And what I would say is, I would think, and you can say if this is true, that that's great because you're freed up for a lot of things, and that puts you on a different like vibration level. However, being at the very beginning at all those points, and even some of your planets are at 0 degrees, like you are like fresh out of the gates. Do you ever feel like um, uh, because when your learning curve is always highest when you start something new. And I think one of the things you have is a very beginner, like kind of, oh, like can do attitude, which if you didn't would be really hard. But do you ever feel like in this lifetime that, oh my God, I'm just starting this, but like you're in the beginning or a beginner's mode, like a freshman, like being a freshman at a new school?
Enthusiastic, like yes, like that enthu I keep, but not like something like anxiety or fear kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
I'm very confident in even if I'm starting something new.
yeah, you
Yeah.
are. You are. There's not a lot of fears. And it's just like that little laugh, like everything's like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you definitely, I would say that, as an incarnation, it's very, you're at a very fresh start.
Hmm. Oh,
All right.
and
Well, I guess
yeah,
that concludes
we are
tonight.
almost there. Yeah.
Thank you all for
I,
hanging in
I
there.
think that's kind of great though, the new fresh start part,
Yeah.
because like how a baby is doesn't know the fears of the world, like they don't have all those. So Vandana is just like a new baby, a new happy baby with all the
Yeah.
things she does, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not worried about
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
negative consequences. So that is envious. Envious position. That's
Oh, yeah.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for sticking in there. I do appreciate it. And yeah, so I will oh, I was supposed to do that in chat, so sorry. Docs. Oh, I can put docs in. Let me do
Thank you for the
Uh,
little glimpse about the energy for the expo. I was even thinking it would be cool to see a chart of RIHHA, like when RIHHA was born, and then what the auspiciousness is of the expo on
Yeah,
top.
yeah.
I did do a chart for RIHHA. Say 9, 10. Let me think. We're
So,
Capricorn rising, actually. RIHHA is Capricorn rising. So 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so we're on the cusp of the fourth house, which is coming home.
wow.
So
So
I
it'd be
thought that was
really
interesting.
cool, really
Yeah.
cool to see the energies of the expo dates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. I haven't done it, and I almost haven't done it because I thought, oh, like if I see anything, I'll worry. I
Well,
have,
you
thought
could
about
wait, you could
what?
wait, you could wait until that day, and then,
Good idea. I like that.
Uh,
like let's just see what's going on today.
and
Thank you.
yeah, even if there is something worrisome, we can bend that. I
Yeah,
believe it.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Sorry, I thought I could. Well, I'm sorry, I can't pull up my chat. I don't know where it went. I think it's because the way I have my screen done. All right.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Linda. That was like beyond words. I would say I got goosebumps in between, and thank you so much.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you all. Have a great night, and I'll see you at the expo.
See you
Thank you.
all.
Thank
Bye
Nice
bye.
you.
job,
Bye.
Linda. Thanks a bunch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.